I can still feel the grit of the dumpster lid under my fingers. That night behind Henderson's grocery, the air smelled like rotting fruit and bleach. A cold wind stung my cheeks as I dug deeper into the black trash bag, praying for anything sealed, anything not soaked. My hands were trembling, not from the January cold, but from the humiliation of knowing I didn't have another option. A truck engine rumbled behind me. I turned just as the blinding headlights hit. I froze. The voice that followed was too familiar. "Jesus, Eli's still doing this," my father said, stepping out of his SUV like a man descending from a throne. Beige wool coat, leather gloves, the smell of expensive cologne cutting through the sour air. I couldn't speak. I just tried to close the trash bag, hide the evidence. He waved a hand like shooing a fly. "Don't act dramatic. If you weren't so stubborn, you wouldn't be living like this." "I'm hungry," I whispered. It came out smaller than I meant. He stared at me the way someone might look at a stain on their shoes. "You made your choice. Don't blame me." My stomach twisted. I forced myself to stand, trying to push the trembling out of my knees. "I just need help, for a little while." He scoffed. "No, you need discipline." When he turned to leave, I felt the power imbalance like a fist around my throat. His SUV door clicked open, that soft, expensive sound I used to associate with safety. Now it sounded like abandonment. I knew he was about to drive away. I knew if he left, I'd go back to digging through bags like an animal. "Dad?" I called out, voice cracking. "Please." He didn't look at me. He just said, almost bored, "You're 30 years old, Eli. Grow up." The SUV rolled away, tires crunching gravel, kicking dust into my face. My knees gave out, and I sank to the asphalt. No one saw me. No one cared. Only the hum of the street lamp and the distant clatter of a shopping cart someone left behind. Something inside me broke, not loudly, but quietly, like fabric tearing under too much weight. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the last time he held power over me. Because 2 weeks later, I would find the box that destroyed the version of him I still loved. My name is Elliot James Walker, though most people just call me Eli. 30 years old, once hopeful, now scraping by day to day in a city that barely knows I exist. Before everything fell apart, I used to think my life was normal. Maybe not happy, but stable. I grew up in a small but tidy house in Ridgewood, Oregon, the kind of home where the grass stayed cut and mail was stacked in neat piles on the kitchen counter. On the outside, we looked like a disciplined family. On the inside, the air always felt too tense, like a glass about to fracture. Dad, Henry Walker, was a man people admired. Crisp shirts, polished shoes, firm handshake. He owned Walker Industrial Investments, and people treated him like royalty. Every school event, every church fundraiser, I would hear the same compliments. "Your father is such an honorable man, Eli. You're lucky to have a role model like him." Lucky. That word sits differently now. Mom, Margaret Walker, was the opposite. Soft voice, gentle laughter, and hands that smelled like warm bread and lavender lotion. She wasn't weak, but Dad made her seem like she was. He corrected her constantly. How she arranged silverware, how she laughed too loud, how she spoiled me with attention. But I adored her. Even now I remember her humming in the kitchen, the sound wrapping around me like a blanket. I remember how she tucked me in at night, always whispering, "You're enough, Eli. Never forget that." She died when I was 11. Officially, it was an accident on the stairs. A fall. Nothing suspicious. At least, not to a grieving child who needed the world to feel safe. After she was gone, everything changed. Dad didn't cry. He didn't mourn. He just said, "Life moves on," and expected me to do the same. I spent the next 20 years trying to earn the affection he never intended to give. I got decent grades, worked hard, stayed out of trouble, but no accomplishment ever reached him. If I got an A, he wanted an A+. If I got promoted, he wanted a better job. If I got an apartment, he told me I didn't deserve it. Still, I tried to love him. I tried so hard that I ignored the exhaustion grinding me down. I ignored the way my friends slowly faded because I was always busy striving. I ignored how Dad controlled everything, from my bank account to the car title to the choices he claimed I couldn't be trusted to make. When I was 26 and asked for help with tuition for an electrical certification program, he said, "Only failures look for shortcuts." When I moved out and asked for some space, he cut off every financial connection without warning and took back the car he'd gifted. I told myself it was tough love. I told myself all men stand on their own feet. I told myself maybe I really was the problem. Then came the years of scraping by. Temp jobs, couch surfing, selling my guitar, picking up cans for scrap metal money, going to bed hungry more often than not. Whenever I finally swallowed my pride and asked him for help, he gave me the same refrain, with the same bored tone. You made your bed. I hated him sometimes, but I never stopped wanting him to look at me the way he looked at strangers who admired him. I wanted to hear, I'm proud of you, just once. Loyalty wrapped around my resentment so tightly I couldn't tell them apart. If anyone told me Dad wasn't who I thought he was, I would have defended him. Even while starving, I still believed he loved me deep down. But that belief evaporated the day I opened the box. Because inside it was my mother's handwriting, and a truth that didn't just rewrite my childhood. It detonated it. It was a Wednesday morning when the box showed up, cold air spilling in from the apartment hallway as I opened my door to leave for a dishwashing shift. The cardboard was weathered, edges soft, taped too many times. No return address. No name. Just my handwriting. Not from today. From childhood. The shaky, clumsy letters spelled out. For Yeli, when you're old enough. My chest tightened. I didn't remember writing it, but I recognized the crooked E, the backward N. I carried it inside, hands unsteady, and set it on the small kitchen table with chipped edges. For a long moment, I just stared. Then I peeled the tape back. The box smelled like attic dust and lavender, Mom. My throat closed. Inside lay a stack of envelopes, each labeled in my mother's handwriting. Neat, looping cursive. God, I hadn't seen it in almost 2 decades. On top sat a smaller envelope stapled to a sheet of paper. In her handwriting, give this to Eli on his 30th birthday. M. But someone had waited 19 extra years. My pulse hammered. I opened the smaller envelope first. A key dropped to the table with a metallic clink. A safe deposit key. Under it, a note. If you're reading this, then he didn't tell you. I read it 3 times before it made sense. Didn't tell me what? I slid the next envelope out and opened it with shaking fingers. It wasn't a letter. It was a bank document. Walker Industrial Investments. Trust Ledger Primary Beneficiary. Elliot James Walker Trust Value. As of June 2005, $214 million. My vision blurred. I blinked hard and read it again. Since I was 11, since the year she died, there had been a trust fund in my name worth hundreds of millions. Money I never knew I had. Money that could have kept me from starvation, homelessness, humiliation. I choked on a breath. No, this can't be real. But the ledger pages were official. Stamped. Signed. Updated across years. The numbers increased over time. Investments, property shares, dividends. The last entry showed a current valuation. $340,480,691.32. My hands shook so violently I had to grip the table. Someone knocked on the open door. I flinched. It was Mrs. Turner, the elderly neighbor from across the hall. She'd always been kind to me. She glanced at the papers spread on the table, and her eyes went wide. Eli, what is that? I don't know, I whispered. I think it's a trust fund. For me. She brought a trembling hand to her mouth. From your mother? I think so. Her expression changed, not excitement. Fear. Does your father know you found it? I swallowed hard. It was meant for me. He's the one who. Stay away from him. Her voice cracked. I'm serious. Don't tell him you have that key. Don't tell him you saw those papers. My confusion sharpened into dread. Why? What do you know? She hesitated, then whispered. I knew your mother. Your father. He wasn't what people thought. Mrs. Turner, I murmured. What aren't you telling me? She backed toward the door, shaking her head. Find out for yourself. But don't go to him. Promise me. The box, the key, the ledger, they weren't just about money. They were a warning. And every new envelope inside that box was a fuse waiting to burn. I didn't go to work that day. I couldn't. My mind was a storm of numbers, memories, and questions that refused to settle. I stuffed the box into my backpack, grabbed my coat, and walked out of the apartment like I was heading into battle. The bank listed on the ledger was First National Storage and Trust, downtown. I rode the bus there, hands clenched so hard the plastic seat creaked. Each stop felt like an eternity. Inside, marble floors and soft piano music made everything seem too calm for what was happening inside my head. A receptionist with a sharp bob and a name tag reading, Susan, smiled politely. Good morning. How can I help you? I slid the safe deposit key across the counter. I need access to box 317. She started typing, then paused. Her expression shifted. One moment, please. She picked up the phone and spoke quietly. It wasn't casual. It was urgent. A man in a gray suit soon appeared. Tall, composed. Name tag, Bradley Thomas, branch manager. Mr. Walker, he asked. I nodded. Please, follow me. He didn't take me to the public vault rooms like everyone else. Instead, he led me down a locked hallway. It made me uneasy. This box is special, he said. Your mother left very specific legal instructions. My breath tightened. You knew her? He nodded. She was a good woman. And very deliberate. We entered a private room. Bradley inserted his key. I inserted mine. The compartment slid open with a metallic sigh. Inside was a thick folder labeled in my mother's handwriting. Not until he's 30. And underneath it, another envelope, sealed in red wax. Bradley stepped back. We're required to give you privacy. Take as long as you need. When he left, I opened the folder first. It was filled with legal documents, each notarized. My father had been removed as trustee. My father had petitioned to regain control twice and been denied. My father received annual notices of the trust's continued growth. He had known. He had known every year while I starved. My stomach turned, but I forced myself to open the wax-sealed envelope. A letter, long written on the stationery Mom used when I was a kid. Eli, my beautiful boy. My vision blurred immediately, but I kept reading. If you are holding this letter, then I am gone, and you are no longer a child. You deserve the truth, even if it hurts. Your father is not the man people believe he is. He has a darkness he hides behind charm. I stayed because I loved you more than I feared him. I gripped the pages so hard they crinkled. He blamed me for loving you, for making you soft, for teaching you kindness. He wanted control over everything, including you. My breath shook. The words began to tremble in my hands. He told me once, when you were only 5, that if I ever tried to leave him, he would destroy both of us. I didn't believe him then. I learned better later. I stopped reading. I had to stand, had to pace the room just to stay upright. My mother had been scared, terrified, and no one had seen it. I forced myself to continue. When you are older, you might remember the night I fell down the stairs. You might remember that we were arguing. A cold sweat broke across my back. I told him I wanted to take you and leave. I told him I wouldn't live in fear anymore. And he told me, if you walk out of this house, you won't make it to the door. I felt nauseous. The room tilted. I need you to understand. If I am dead, it was not an accident. My knees nearly gave out. I had to brace myself on the table. The last lines were burned into my mind even before I finished reading them. I couldn't protect myself, but I protected you. Everything I owned, everything I inherited, belongs to you, not him. The money is not the point. The truth is, he took my life, Eli. Do not let him take yours. My ears rang. I pressed my hand to my chest to steady my breathing. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually, I gathered every document and placed them back into the folder. I couldn't let anyone intercept them now. They were proof of my mother's love, my father's betrayal, and a life that had been stolen from me long before hunger and dumpsters. When I left the vault room, Bradley looked at me with sympathy. If you need legal counsel, I'm fine. I interrupted, voice breaking. Thank you. Outside, the city noise crashed over me. Horns, engines, footsteps, chatter. Life kept moving while mine had just been detonated. I needed answers, not just from paper, but from people who knew more than I did. I started with Aunt Linda, Mom's younger sister. We hadn't spoken in years. She lived in Wilson Creek, 3 hours away. I took a bus the next morning. When she opened the door, her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. Eli, you look just like her. Her house smelled like cinnamon and fabric softener, nothing like the sterile coldness of my childhood home. We sat at her kitchen table. When I mentioned the trust, she didn't look surprised. He convinced everyone you would inherit nothing, she said quietly. He made us think you didn't want contact. So you all believed him? I asked, hurt leaking into my voice. For a while, she admitted. Until we realized he was rewriting everything. Your mother wasn't allowed to have a funeral her way. Did you know that? I shook my head. He handled everything. Wouldn't let us see the autopsy report. Wouldn't let anyone speak at the service except him. I clenched my fists. Why didn't anyone fight him? Her voice cracked. Because your father ruins people. Jobs disappear. Loans get denied. Social circles shut their doors. Everyone learned to stay quiet. I swallowed bitterness. And you left me alone with him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry, Eli. I'm so sorry. She went to a drawer and pulled out a USB drive. This has every message your mother sent me during her last year. She was documenting everything. Her fear. Her suspicions. My pulse spiked. Why didn't you go to the police? We tried. Her voice trembled. But your father had already convinced everyone she was unstable. He was untouchable. Still is. I stood, pacing. Not anymore. She met my eyes. Be careful. He destroys anything that threatens him. I walked out with the USB in my pocket, the folder of documents in my bag, and a truth sharp enough to cut through bone. My father hadn't just watched me starve. He'd made sure I lived in a world where no one would ever believe me. But he didn't know that I believed myself now. And that was enough to start a fire. I watched the USB load on Aunt Linda's old desktop computer, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my ribs. There were dozens of audio files, each labeled by date. The timeline started 6 months before my mother died. The first recording crackled as it began. Linda, he's getting worse. My mother's voice. Softer than I remembered, but unmistakable. I had to sit down. My lungs forgot how to work. Eli is growing up too fast. He's careful with everything he says, like he's scared to disappoint him. I don't know how to protect him without setting Henry off. A knife turned in my chest. Even as a kid, she had seen me shrink. Another file. I asked about a therapist for Eli. Henry blew up. Said no son of his would be weak. I'm afraid he'll turn Eli into a mirror of himself. A lump formed in my throat. She had fought for me quietly, even when I didn't know. Then another recording. This time, her breathing was shaky, frightened. He found the papers, Linda. The trust paperwork. He thinks I'm hiding money from him. I tried to explain it was from my parents, that it was meant for Eli when he grows up, but he says I'm ruining him by planning to make him independent. He wants control over everything. The next few clips were shorter, her crying, whispering, panicking. Then one recording froze me in place. He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure no one ever believed I wasn't crazy. And he'd make Eli hate me. Aunt Linda turned away, covering her mouth. I kept listening because I had to. A recording dated 3 days before her death. We fought again. I told him I wanted out. I told him I'd rather live poor and safe than rich and terrified. He told me, if you take one step toward the door with him, I will erase you. I don't know what to do. I'm scared every second. My eyes burned. My fists ached from clenching. Then came the final file, time-stamped the night she died. Only 8 seconds long. A hard breath. A gasp. A jolt. A scream cut off. Then impact. Then silence. I slammed the laptop closed. I couldn't breathe. Aunt Linda reached for my hand. Eli. I yanked away, not from her, but from the truth itself. He killed her. Her voice broke. Yes. He killed her. I repeated, louder, like if I said it enough the world might adjust to it. You can't go to him, she warned. If he knows you're coming, he'll get ahead of you. He always has. I stared at the wall, heat rising in my chest like wildfire. He already took everything from me. I said, what else can he do? She answered in a whisper that chilled me. He can ruin you before you even speak. The realization hit like a punch. If I confronted him with only emotion, he would manipulate the story, twist the facts, control the narrative, like he always did. I didn't need rage. I needed proof. And I needed witnesses. For the next 2 days, I didn't sleep. I photocopied every document. I backed up every recording to multiple drives. I printed transcripts. I organized everything by date. Then I went to people who once stood in my father's shadow and had been burned by it. First was Pastor Raymond, an older man who had officiated my mother's funeral. His hands trembled when he saw me. I knew something was wrong, he confessed. Your father told me to keep the service short and avoid dramatic wording. I regret listening. He agreed to speak if needed. Next was Detective Monica Dyer, who had investigated Mom's death as a rookie officer. I found her through public records and drove 2 hours to her home. She stared at the printed transcripts, jaw tight. I believed it was homicide, she admitted. But the department shut it down. Your father had judges and senior officers in his corner. I was told to drop it or ruin my career. Will you testify if this goes forward? I asked. She didn't hesitate. Yes. Piece by piece, people who had once been silent began to speak. The more truth gathered around me, the less my father's shadow version of reality could survive. For the first time in my life, the weight on my chest began to shift from shame to strength. But there was one more person I needed, someone who could connect everything legally. Attorney Michael Harper, one of the wealthiest lawyers in the state, and once one of my father's closest friends. He lived in a mansion with white pillars and a circular driveway I remembered from childhood, photos taken during charity galas, magazine fundraisers, smiling faces. Except now, when the butler opened the door and saw me, he said, "Mr. Harper has been expecting you." My heartbeat stalled. Expecting me? I was led to a study lined with dark wood and leather-bound books. Harper sat behind a desk, older now, but sharp-eyed. "I knew this day would come," he said. I sat slowly. "You knew about the trust?" "Yes," he replied. "Maggie told me everything. She came to me for legal protection when she realized she didn't feel safe with your father." My throat tightened. "Why didn't you do anything?" His expression fell. "Your mother begged me not to act until she was gone. She feared he would kill her, and you, if anyone challenged him." I gripped the armrest to stay steady. "So what now?" Harper opened a drawer and placed a stack of signed and notarized statements on the desk. "These are affidavits your mother filed with me, detailing the abuse, the threats, the financial control, and her belief that he would cause her death." I stared, speechless. "You're not alone, Eli," he said. "You never were." My voice cracked. "So how do I bring him down?" "You don't," Harper said. "You let the truth speak for itself." "But he manipulates everyone," I whispered. "He'll twist everything." "Not this time." Harper leaned forward. "You expose him publicly, in front of the people whose opinions he lives for. His empire isn't built on money. It's built on reputation. Destroy that, and he collapses." My chest rose and fell with a trembling breath. "Where?" Harper didn't hesitate. "At the Walker Foundation Charity Gala. It's in 6 days. Every investor, donor, politician, and socialite he depends on, they'll all be there." A silence settled between us, cold, electric, final. It wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about truth. It was about the woman who hummed lavender-scented lullabies and told me I was enough. It was about reclaiming the life stolen from both of us. 6 days from now, the man who watched me eat from dumpsters while hiding $340 million would face the one thing he couldn't control, the truth, and I would be the one to speak it. The Walker Foundation Charity Gala looked exactly like I remembered from childhood memories. Glass chandeliers, marble floors, champagne flutes, and people dressed in success and superiority. A string quartet played something elegant in the corner. Laughter rose like perfume. Every detail screamed my father's world. I stood just inside the entrance, clutching the folder of documents. I wore a thrift store suit, pressed as best I could. I didn't belong there, and everyone seemed to know it. Heads turned. Eyes narrowed. Then they parted. My father approached, immaculate as always. Black tuxedo, silver cufflinks, hair slicked back. He smiled wide, for the audience. "Eli," he said warmly, like he was greeting a beloved son. "I didn't expect to see you tonight." I didn't respond. The mask slipped from his face for half a second. Irritation, alertness, then the charm returned. "Come," he said softly through clenched teeth, hand gripping my elbow. "We'll talk privately." I shook him off. Loud enough for the nearest group to hear, I said, "No. We talk here." A small hush spread over the room. Conversations dimmed. He straightened, smoothing his jacket. "What's gotten into you?" he asked with a chuckle. "You're causing a scene." I took a breath that burned my lungs. "I know everything." He blinked. Confusion performed for the crowd. "Everything. The trust. The inheritance. Mom's letter. The recordings." His jaw flinched, just once, barely. People nearby froze. Champagne glasses lowered. "Son," he said, his voice trembling in false heartbreak, "I don't know what lies you've been told, but this is neither the time nor the place." "It's exactly the time and place," I said. "This is where you performed your goodness. Tonight is where we show the truth." He stepped closer, voice low but deadly. "Walk out the door, Eli. Now, before you destroy yourself." I didn't move. "You let me starve while sitting on $340 million that belonged to me." Gasps rippled. His mask cracked. "That money wasn't yours," he snapped. "You weren't ready. You'd have wasted it." "I ate from dumpsters," I said. "You watched. You drove away." A woman near him whispered, "Henry, is this true?" He laughed harshly. "My son has always been dramatic, unstable." I cut him off. "You said the same thing about Mom." His face drained of color. I placed a laptop on the nearest table and clicked play. My mother's voice filled the ballroom. "He told me if I ever took one step toward the door with Eli, I wouldn't make it to the car." The room fell silent. Every I turned to him. My father's voice broke into the recording, not literally, but in his performance. "Maggie was unstable," he insisted. "Everyone knows she struggled emotionally. This is a private family matter twisted by grief." I clicked the next file. "I'm scared every second. If I'm dead, it wasn't an accident." A woman dropped her glass. It shattered. My father lunged toward the laptop, but Detective Monica Dyer stepped forward from the crowd like a blade cutting through silk. "Touch that laptop, and I will arrest you on obstruction of evidence." People stared. She held up her badge. Whispers turned to shock. My father tried to laugh. "Is this some stunt?" "A former officer." "Former because your friends ended my career," she replied. "I warned you this day would come." Next came Michael Harper, the attorney, stepping onto the dais near the stage microphone. "I have notarized affidavits from Maggie Walker describing years of abuse, threats, and financial coercion," he said. "Signed before her death." My father grabbed the microphone stand, knuckles white. "You all know me. You've known me for decades. I'm a man of honor. I built everything I have through integrity." "No," I said, stepping forward. My voice was calm. "Mom built the fortune. You stole her voice, her safety, her dignity, and then you took mine too." He pointed at me with a trembling hand. "You're nothing without me." I shook my head. "I became nothing because of you." The weight of the words hit the room like a wave. He pounded the podium. "You are my son." I stared at him, feeling something inside me settle. I used to think that meant something. Tears I didn't expect stung my eyes, not from weakness, but release. "And now," I said, "it means nothing." Security moved in. Not because of me, because investors were demanding it. Board members, donors, sponsors. His empire was collapsing in real time, not from violence, but from truth. He shouted as they pulled him back. "You're lying. All of you." He wouldn't be anything without me. I didn't yell back. I didn't move. I just stood there while he was dragged from the room, his reputation hemorrhaging faster than security could escort him. A final scream echoed down the marble hallway. "I made you," I whispered, just loud enough for myself to hear. "No, Mom did." The gala fell into a stunned hush. No applause. No cheers. Just silence. Heavy, honest, irreversible. For the first time in my life, I wasn't small. The room wasn't spinning around him anymore. It was spinning around the truth. And I stood still through all of it. The weeks after the gala were strange. Headlines did what I never could. They held my father accountable. Nothing was proven in court yet, but the investigation reopened, and his social empire crumbled long before a judge ever saw the documents. He tried to call me from county holding once. I declined. Not out of hatred, out of self-preservation. I moved out of my tiny apartment. Not into a mansion, not into luxury. Into something I chose, a modest house with a porch in a quiet neighborhood where the loudest sound was wind through trees. The trust finally transferred to me in full once the legal dust cleared. Attorneys handled everything. I didn't chase revenge or publicity. I didn't need either. One afternoon, Aunt Linda came to visit. She stepped inside and looked around, smiling softly. "You've made a home," she said. "I'm trying," I replied. We unpacked groceries together. For the first time in my life, my fridge filled without anxiety. No expiration dates from the dumpster. No hunger gnawing like shame. At dinner, she reached across the table. "Are you happy?" "Happier," I said honestly. "Not whole yet, but I'm getting there." Her eyes glistened. "She'd be proud of you, Eli." I swallowed hard. "I hope so." Later, after she left, I walked through the house. Not to check locks, not to fear footsteps, but because I could. Freedom felt quiet, not loud. I set up a small workshop in the spare room. Nothing fancy, just tools and wiring. I enrolled in the same electrical certification course I wasn't allowed to pursue years ago. The instructor, Mark Daniels, clapped my shoulder after class one day. "You're a natural," he smiled. "You ever think about teaching?" I laughed softly. "Not yet. Maybe someday." For once, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a blank page. A month later, I got something unexpected, a letter from county jail. My father wrote it. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Closure wasn't in hearing him speak. Closure was in no longer needing his voice to define mine. Some nights I still felt the old shadows, the memories of trying to be worthy of a man who wanted me small. But they faded faster now. Every new thing I built chipped away at the pieces of him still lodged in my mind. Money didn't heal me. Truth did, and the space to build a life I chose. The last person I expected to see was Detective Monica Dyer, who stopped by one afternoon to update me on the case. Before she left, she paused on the porch. "You saved more than yourself," she said softly. "You saved every person who was ever afraid of him." I shook my head. "I didn't do it for that." "I know," she replied. "That's why it matters." She walked away, and I watched the light change across the yard, gold on the grass, warm on the porch steps. For the first time in decades, the world didn't feel heavy. It felt mine. Near the end of summer, I visited the cemetery for the first time since I was a child. Not because I owed the past anything, but because I finally had the strength to stand in front of it. I brought nothing with me. No flowers. No speeches. Just myself. The headstone was simple: Margaret Walker, beloved mother. The grass around it swayed gently in the wind. The smell of pine and sun-warmed earth wrapped the air, nothing like the cold marble I remembered from years ago. I sat beside the grave, knees to my chest, fingers tracing blades of grass. No dramatic sobbing. No declarations. Just breathing. The kind of breathing that comes only when your lungs don't belong to someone else anymore. After a long while, I reached into my pocket and took out one object: the safe deposit key. The same key that had once meant danger, silence, fear. I set it gently at the base of the headstone, not as a surrender, but as acknowledgement. She had given me everything she could. Now I was giving the fear back. The wind moved across the cemetery, quiet and steady. I stood, turned toward the open sunlight, and walked home.